Welcome to a Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes, and once again I'm joined by Colin Watt, where we'll be speaking about the Greenock Celtic Supporters Club, of which you are a member. Colin, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having us back, Paul. Yeah, I'm a member of the Greenock Celtic Supporters Club. Have been since I was 18, so 8 long years now, and delighted to give the listeners and the viewers an insight into what the club is, and encourage everyone when they can to come and give us a visit.
Well, this is a new feature we're doing on a Celtic State of Mind. Anyone who is involved in any way, shape or form with a supporters club, a Celtic supporters club, get in touch and come and join us in the studio. We'll chat about your supporters club, and we'll give you some exposure and some promotion. You can tell us all about the origins of your club, some memories, away days, all the kinds of thing that happens on supporters buses, Colin. And I know that you're a seasoned traveller for Celtic away days, European days. You might have gone to the Lazio game. We're already getting some comments in. Feel free to comment. Tony Cassidy, it's happening, beat on. I mean, that just takes me back. This week we've been talking about left backs. Takes me back to a young Kieran Tierney, that.
This happening, Pete, on it's probably the most memed Celtic thing over the last few years.
Seems like a while ago, eh?
Who's Kieran Tierney?
Exactly. Well, let's not talk about left backs anyway. So the Greenock CSC, that's how I met you, Colin.
Yes.
We were through. There's a number of events happen at the brilliant building you've got through there. So tell me a wee bit about the history of the club.
So this year is a special year for the Greenock CSC. We're celebrating our 75th anniversary, which makes us, I believe, one of the longest running Celtic supporters clubs in the world. I think we're probably the longest running in Scotland, although there'll probably be people listening that will come in and correct me if I'm wrong. But the origins of the club lie in the town centre of Greenock. As you know, Greenock was a bustling place with the shipbuilding, and it was one of the ports for trade coming in to Glasgow.
Mm-hmm.
So Greenock used to be a fantastic town. The club is in its current location within Laird Street in Greenock, and it's its third location. And the reason it's its third location is it's had to grow over the years because the demand was absolutely phenomenal. So this has been in its location now since, I believe, the early 70s. And we have capacity for over 400 between our function hall and our downstairs hall. And it's one of the things that's actually helped us out is the size of the building throughout this current kind of COVID-19 issues, because we've still been able to welcome back as many regulars as possible, socially distant and safe, thanks to the fact that we've got so much space. So it's been a bit of a godsend for us.
It's a brilliant hall up the stairs, I've got to say. And when I've been speaking to some of the committee members through Greenock, Colin, they told me that it was basically built by the members of the club.
Yes.
And that was in the 1970s.
Yeah.
So they were calling on people who might have been joiners and decorators and etc. And just they built it themselves. It's just the history of that in itself is quite remarkable. But when you walk in, there's some brilliant presentation cases up the stairs, and there's fantastic memorabilia within those cases. And there is a famous green Lisbon blazer. What's the story behind that?
So that is actually the presentation jacket of Ronnie Simpson's from back in Lisbon.
Mm-hmm.
Its origins of how we've managed to come about it are a bit unknown. What I believe the story to be is that we were loaned the jacket, and that loan period seems to not have ended. But it's still within the presentation boxes. We've got some fantastic memorabilia from the Lisbon rug.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the Lisbon rug that's actually got a place in here in the State of Mind studios.
We've got one, yeah.
We've got the first original copy of the Celtic View. There's pictures from players and managers that have been down over the years, and some of the stuff that we've got within that club, the memorabilia is just incredible, as well as actually some fantastic paintings from local artists, and you could spend hours going through everything that's there. What we also have upstairs on the hall is our back wall is decorated. So like the wallpaper is old pictures from events that happened in the club, player visits, and Celtic memories. And any time someone comes over to visit family from Greenock, they always go upstairs and they always look at the old photos and remember the times that they spent in the club. And it's something that we're really proud of.
Oh, definitely. It is a walk down memory lane when you start looking through some of these images on the back wall. Am I right in saying that there is an image of Maurice Johnston up there?
No comment.
No comment. You'll need to visit and check that yourself. But there's a whole wall dedicated to Tommy Burns. I know that much.
Yeah. So the Tommy Burns wall was actually very kindly donated by our current secretary. It had always been the plan that we were going to have a memorial for Tommy within the club. And it must be about 10, 11 feet in height and width, and it's just to the right of the stage, right next to the wall that we're talking about that has all the Celtic memories on it. And it's the generosity of our members and our committee that makes the club so special. Unfortunately, over the last sort of, I think it was a year or so, we had a occasion where one of our regular visitors took ill and unfortunately passed away. And through the generosity of his friends and the people within the club, we actually had a defibrillator bought for the club, and we had one bought for outside the club so that we could offer that support for those within the club. And it just shows you that when you go in there, people make friendships for life.
Oh, they definitely do. And again, every time I go, I've been lucky enough, and we'll talk about this, Colin, to be asked to do some question and answer session with ex-Celtic players and figures. And every time I go there, I always say to the audience, this is the best Celtic supporters club I've ever been to. And I don't mean that in the sense of every time I go to any club I say that. I actually mean it. It's brilliant. And they welcome you in. They take you under the wing. And it's brilliant. The guys and girls there are fantastic. Great set of staff and a great committee. And I love going. It's been a shame because we had a few gigs lined up during the lockdown which we weren't able to fulfil. But hopefully once we get back to normal, I can come and visit you guys again. We'll run through a few questions because they are coming through. Feel free to comment or ask questions via Twitter, YouTube and Facebook, and Colin and I will do our best as we talk about the Greenock Celtic Supporters Club. This is a new feature on A Celtic State of Mind. We'll go live. Get involved if you're part of the club or if you're part of a different club and you want to come in and visit us and tell us all about your supporters club, then you will be more than welcome. Now, Tony Cassidy again, who's a long-time supporter of the podcast. We attend Capello sometimes for reserve games. How far is the club from Capello? We'd love to visit. That comes from Tony Cassidy. So
Capello for the reserve games is about a 15-minute walk, but there is regular buses that stop outside Capello which take you into the town centre. And you'll find that the club is directly across from the Tesco Superstore. And we'll be more than welcome to have you in at any time. In fact, if you're ever going to the games or if Celtic ever draw Morton, then feel free to come through.
Brilliant. Or get in touch with us nearer the time as well, Tony, and we'll keep you right because obviously you can DM us on Twitter. And the next question is coming in from Stiggers 1888. Great to get involved via YouTube, Stiggers. Don't forget it's in prime location for some food after stumbling out of the club. Went to a couple of nights in there, one with David Lowe and Kevin McKenna, as well as the world famous Paul John Dykes. Well, maybe in my own peace break. But what kind of eateries have you got round about the club then?
Oh,
I've missed these.
You're spoiled for choice. I always tell you to grab something on the way home.
I know.
Your wife's always moaning that you're coming in without something for her. So.
That's true.
Right across the street we have a Chinese. Around the corner we have an Italian takeaway. We've got a brand new restaurant just at the top of the street. Greenock is one of these places that is full of takeaways. Whether they're of the high quality or not is up for people to find out for themselves. But certainly when you've come out and you need a scran before heading home, there's plenty of places to stop off.
It takes about an hour and 3/4 maybe to get back to my house after a night at the Greenock. So maybe I should start doing it, Obviously I'm watching what I'm eating.
I've always offered you that spare bed.
Ah, well, you have. Gary Doonan, welcome back. A lot of hard games down at Greenock, late 70s, early 80s, when Benny Rooney was Morton manager. Atmosphere was great. Obviously, I can't remember that personally because I was too young, Colin. I'll just get that one in early. But I'm aware of the era. I'm aware of the era because Mike Jackson, the ex-Celt, was part, I think, for a spell of Benny Rooney's management team.
Yep.
And I spoke to Mike Jackson when I was writing a couple of my books on Celtic, and he told me about his memories of the great Andy Ritchie. So Andy Ritchie is obviously a famous son of Morton, with the Celtic link. Is there any others from the area who have maybe swung by or have come in over the years? I know Stevie Fulton is another ex-Celtic.
Stevie Fulton, Owen Archdeacon.
Yeah.
Paul McStay is actually married to a girl from Port Glasgow, and has been known to go to mass locally,
right,
which isn't too far away. There's been quite a few players that have came from this sort of Greenock area that have went on to make a decent career for themselves. There's also ones like guys like Sean Dillon, Gary Harkins, more recently, who frequent the club. You've got celebrities that have came from Greenock as well.
Such as?
There's a few. Richard Wilson was born in Greenock. There's one for you.
Right.
I don't know if you know that. But more recently, you've got guys like Martin Compston, who have been in before he moved away. You don't really see much of Martin in Scotland nowadays.
I thought you were going to say in the club.
A bit of both.
Mm-hmm.
But the area, it lends itself to a lot of tourists. We have something in the region of 250,000 tourists a year that dock at Greenock.
Right.
Why they dock at Greenock, we still don't know, but there's a dock there for the cruise ships to come in. A lot of them disappear up on buses to Edinburgh and Glasgow and things like that. But we would get people coming in thinking it's an actual Celtic place, thinking it's where Celtic play football. But it's good for a lot of people that have maybe immigrated out of Greenock, because that was an immigration port back in the day, to come home to look at their roots, and they've always known that there was a Celtic supporters club in Greenock. Oh,
it's brilliant. It's absolutely superb. And we've got another question before we continue on the Greenock CSC chat, and this is coming in from 9th Legion. Thanks for joining us again. I appreciate you were on the bulletin earlier on this afternoon. Paul, a little off topic, but do you have any email details for the Jimmy Johnson Academy? I can't access their site and I'd like to email them about bringing my son along for a trial. Well, what you can do is you can certainly find them on Twitter. It's the JJA Glasgow, at JJA Glasgow, or you can email me and I will forward that on for you as well. My email is pauljohndykes@gmail.com. So send that along to pauljohndykes@gmail.com and I'll forward your message on to the Jimmy Johnson Academy. Thanks for that. And when I've been involved in a couple of supporters clubs over the years, Colin. When I started driving, I just started going through in the car. But there's always, legendary figures within supporters clubs. There's always stories that continue for years and years and years. Do you have any of these famous or infamous characters amongst the club?
There's been many over the years, and I would do a disservice to a lot of them if I was to go and try and list them all, because there'd be so many that I would miss out on. And I think the thing about the Greenock Celtic Supporters Club is, because it's so big, everyone's got their own sort of legends that they look upon. But we've had guys like Charles Harvey Lynch, who was a long-standing president of the club, actually passed away whilst he was still president. He was a local fire, this sort of fire chief, and there's memorials for him all over the club. He's well fought upon. Guys like Sanny Galbraith, without name dropping him too much, my uncle Jim, who actually got me into supporting Celtic, he's a well-known figure within the club, not only for his history of Celtic, but apparently he makes good bridies. So if you're ever in at a Domino's night in the Greenock Celtic, Big Jim Hill will have bridies on with him. That's always seems to be the thing. A bridie, I take it we know what a bridie is.
Oh, come on, I'm from Dunfermline. Of course I know what a bridie is.
Do you want to tell the listeners that might not know what a bridie is? We've got listeners from all over the world.
We do, from as far afield as Vietnam. And, well, a bridie is pastry with some mincemeat in it. It's kind of like a shape of, what would you describe the shape as? A semicircular shape.
See, that's why I asked you to do it, because I'm
Yeah,
really squirming myself.
That's what it is.
But I mean, even looking at the committee, we've had guys that have been on the committee for over 20 years that have done that whilst they're working full time, and it's not just as easy as turning up on a match day, seeing what's going on with the club and moving on. There's guys that are putting a full time shift in there whilst doing full time jobs. Our most recent departed president was Tommy Dornan, and he was there for over 20 years. So it shows that guys are committed to the club, and there is a loyalty towards the club from a lot of the members, which is just completely unprecedented. And myself, I've been on the committee now for the last 4 or 5 years, and the work that these guys do behind the scenes to keep a place like that going, it can't be understated.
Well, you use the word commitment, and that's what it's all about. You're a committee when you get involved there, and I've seen a lot of the work that gets done, Colin, from yourself and by some of your colleagues as well. The success of the club really is built on the members and on the committee. You've already told us how large the building is and how much you can actually take on a match day or on a Friday night, Saturday night, because I know there's a lot of entertainment goes on. How many members does the club have, and what kind of work do the members do and not only make sure that the club survives and is run well, but work for charity, because I know that you do a lot of charity work as well?
So currently we've got just over about 330 members that are active contributing members who pay a monthly contributions fee. We've got something in the region of, I think, about 100 retiree members. The way we look at that is once you turn 65, you've really paid your dues to the club, and you continue to be a member, but you don't have to contribute anymore, which is fantastic for those guys. And I think over this recent period where we've had the closure with COVID-19 and everything that's going on, we've actually seen where people have pulled together more than ever to show their support from the club. We've actually managed to redecorate the downstairs hall, and it's all members that have helped to do that, whether it be relaying the flooring or building the bar, painting, varnishing, helping with the roof work. There's always been members that have been happy to lend a hand. And as you mentioned there, none more so than when we look at the charity work that the club's done over the last decade or so. Over the last 5 years, I think the running totals up to around £150,000.
Remarkable.
Which has been donated to charity. And that's various charities. It's not as if we've got one specific charity. The most recent events that you've done with us, Paul, has been for the Beatson. We do things for local hospices. We do it for the Celtic Foundation. We do it for
MND Scotland.
MND Scotland.
Yeah.
There's been so many different charities, and we get requests all the time, and it is very hard to kind of turn people down. But if we were to run all the charity events that we do, we would be there 400 days a year when there's not 400 days to fill. But one of the things we're very proud of is that we as a club have built a school, and we have built a school in Rwanda. It is a primary school in Tabari. I'll be pronouncing that wrong probably. But that started as a conjunction with Aid for Education. And we've had members that have went out there to the school, and we have a yearly race night which raises in around £4,500 to £5,000, and that money actually goes towards building classrooms, it goes towards building kitchens, it goes for things like pens and pencils and uniform, and we send out old Celtic tops every year as well. And there's actually a plaque on the school that says that this school was built by the generosity of the members and visitors of the Greenock Celtic Supporters Club.
Brilliant.
So the fact that we're doing that, it just shows that what we're doing and having a great night, having a race night, is having a difference tens of thousands of miles away.
Oh, it's absolutely tremendous, the work that goes on. Being part of supporters club's a special thing, Colin. I remember it as a youth. The stories and the tales that you heard on a supporters bus was an education. I mean, if any of them's listening, I remember Paddy Murphy and Jay Cusick talking about things that would make your toes curl. But you know, it was a learning process as a young boy to listen into that. And some of the language, etc., you wouldn't use when you go home to your mother. However, tell us about your own introduction to following Celtic and getting involved with the CSC.
Yeah, so I was brought into Celtic by my uncle Jim, the famous Jim Hill bridie maker. He had been going to the games for about 30 or 40 years. He followed Celtic all over Scotland, all over England, and he had his season ticket for as long as I can remember. He was the one that really got me into football, and he would take me along to the games. And the thing, as you're saying, about hearing the stories about supporters buses, he would always tell me stories about how he would leave a game at half time to go to the pub and miss a supporters bus down the road and have to make his own way home from all over Scotland to then go to work the following morning. So it's incredible, some of the stuff that you hear. From when he first took me, I was about 6. So I remember when you go to the Celtic, you go in through the big green doors.
And that's what they call it, eh? The Celtic.
The Celtic.
That's what the locals call the club.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you go into the Celtic, you go through the big green doors and you're into the foyer. And that is where it's also known as the dumping ground, because the kids are then given a can of Coke or a can of juice and a packet of crisps and told to sit out here and wait whilst the legal of age people go into the hall to have a couple of drinks before the bus. And then there's a shout that the buses are ready to go, and out comes you're reunited with your uncle or your dad or your mum, and you're taken up to the game. And I used to look forward to it every Saturday. And it's one of my youngest childhood memories, is going up to these games, going up on the bus, having the ticket on the bus. It's all part of what's being a supporters club, and the memories from going to games even back then is something that will stick with me for a long time.
Absolutely. And you pass on that baton, don't you? The generation to generation.
Yeah.
And another thing, you know, when we're talking about away days as well, how many buses are we talking here that are running out of the Greenock Celtic?
So on average, going to a home game, we take somewhere between 4 and 5 buses. And that's what we think of, is we're not the only place in Greenock that actually runs a bus to the games. We're probably one of 6 or 7 pubs locally that will run a bus to the game, and we're taking 5. Sometimes it's 6 or 7 depending on who we're playing.
So who's the pub where everybody's banned? They go to that particular pub to get on that bus, because there's always a bus like that, eh?
It's actually across the street in the Black Cat. A fantastic pub as well, don't get me wrong.
In Fife it's called the Chemical Bus. I'll let you figure that one out for yourself. Or they're banned from every other club and they go to the Chemical Bus and they'll get a seat on that bus.
There's probably a couple of buses in Greenock that's like that.
Now, this takes me on to the next question. Did you see the Black Cat?
The Black Cat.
Now, is that where Brian McClare was in for a few sherbets before
Yes, it was.
he joined us at the Greenock? So over the last a couple of years now, probably, I've been coming through to Greenock to do some question and answer sessions with ex-Celts, but also with figures like David Lowe and Kevin McKenna to talk about the takeover. We've had various different figures in. One of the best nights, in my opinion, was Brian McClare. That was brilliant. But we've spoken to Danny McGrain, we've spoken to people like Jim Craig, and other folk that have come along, Paddy McCourt.
Yep.
We had Alan Thompson lined up, but obviously
Alan
that was
Thompson
during the lockdown.
Rob Douglas, John Hartson.
Yeah.
The first night we met was the CQN night, Celtic Quick News.
Bertie was here.
We had the whole Lisbon Lions on there.
The bold Bertie. Now, what's your most memorable guest or moment of these nights? Because I've got one in my mind.
That's a hard one.
I'll tell you mine where you can think, all right? So Brian McClare comes in and he's had a couple of, as I say, Swifties in the Black Cat, is it?
Yep.
So he comes in, he's on brilliant form. And whenever I'm there, we have a half-time break, and during that break, people can write down questions on wee cards, and they can also tweet them in. So it's a half Q&A and then a half audience Q&A, and it works really well. So someone, and you can tell by their handwriting, puts in the same question every single time on a card. What's your favourite Rebel song, right? So at half-time, you run all these questions through all the players, and the majority of them say, I'm not answering that, right? So I had all these questions in my hand. I say to Brian McClare, right, I'm going to go through this. I'll answer them all, he says. And he walks back up to the bar for a pint. So the question comes up. I says, Brian, you know, this person asks this question all the time. And I'm not going to ask you. He always wants to know what your favourite Rebel tune is. But I know you're a music fan, so what's your favourite song? And he says, The Merry Ploughboy. There might have been a sing song after it. But Chalky was brilliant, eh?
Chalky was fantastic. I remember I was quite concerned when Chalky came through because I had heard that he'd been on the drink for a couple of hours before he turned up, and I'm going, oh no, I hope this still goes well. But he was on absolute form.
Oh, it was brilliant.
And I remember the Q&A was probably one of the best parts of the night, because he was different in the way the rest of the guys.
Well, they took the mic and started walking in amongst the crowd.
Around the room. I remember the first question he was asked, and he asked the room, who asked me that question?
That's right.
And the crowd went silent. And you're going, oh no.
A wee hand goes up.
And a hand goes up and he goes, thanks for asking that. And you're going, oh, it was just the relief kind of going through you. But
remember Love Street? What's your memories of Love Street, Brian? Well, on a Tuesday I got a perm. And by half an hour into the game I regretted it because it started raining and my hair was frizzy. That was his answer.
He was fantastic.
Aye. He was great. I've also got a note here. Jock Stein. Did Jock Stein visit the club back in the day?
I believe he did, back in the day. The Lisbon Lions were quite frequent in the club. This was back in the days when it was
they're looking for Ronnie's jacket.
Probably, aye. We probably had it that day. But this was a time when players would come down to the club quite frequently. And to be honest, over the years we've had some incredible players in the club. We've had Lubo Moravcik. I'm trying to think who else we've had down. We've had Sutton, Hartson, not Larson yet, but Henrik, if you're listening, we'd love to have you down. We had Peter Lawwell and Neil Lennon actually came down when Neil was first appointed.
Some people know them just as Peter and Neil.
Depends who close you are. They actually came down when Neil Lennon was first appointed. Do you remember the PR tour they did?
Yeah.
And it was basically to get fans on side to buy the season tickets, and one of the stops was in Greenock. So that's another player I've had. I think Danny McGrain, that was probably one of the brilliant nights we've had in there. And the fact is just that Danny tells it how it is.
He does. And if he's getting a heckler, he'll heckle him back.
Oh, he was on form that night. He was asked the question about how him and was it Kenny Dalglish went in to get a wage rise.
That's right.
And he sent Kenny in first. And when he came back out, he's like, oh, what did you get? And Kenny wouldn't tell him. So he went in, went same as him. And everybody's going, well, what did you get? What did you get? And he's like, no, I'm not telling you. And they're like, what do you think, Guess? And he had the crowd going for a good 5-10 minutes. He was fantastic.
But remember the question about Kieran Tierney came up and Danny McGrain said, you know, the boy should leave. You can't expect him to stay. He's going to leave.
I think that's split opinion. And I think it probably still does split opinion across the Celtic fans.
Yeah.
But it just showed you that he was there to tell it exactly how it is.
Oh, I know, he doesn't hold back. We'll run through a few more of these comments and questions, Colin, and then obviously you can tell us, bring us right up to date with the club and how he's are doing. Jez, thanks again for joining us. Jez, you're asking a question via Twitter. Hi guys, in the 80s I was a member of the Stonehouse CSC. There was myself and my daughter, just the two of you.
That's incredible.
Well, listen, you're always welcome to come down and join us at the Greenock for the next night out that we have there, whenever that might be. Kevin Graham, you're prolific today, you're coming in. Great club, always made me and my poetry very welcome. That's another thing, right? I mean, you've got a room up the stairs there, and some of these gigs are sold out. In fact, most of them are sold out. Everybody's had a few swallies, and we put a poet on the stage.
In Greenock, in the west coast of Scotland, we put a poet on stage, and the room fell silent.
Yep.
They listened to him word for word.
It was brilliant. Fair play to Kevin. I've seen him doing it in Malone's in Glasgow on
quite
match
intimidating.
day. Yeah, and he's done well. There's nothing been thrown at the stage yet.
Just a horse's hat.
Yes. Jason Christie, how are you guys? Hope you are well. We're great, Jason. Thanks for joining us. Keep tuning in because we're going to be doing live bulletins on a daily basis. Tony Cassidy, Celtic Shamrock magazine. tell of Glengarry community who docked at Greenock in 1791. Amazing story. Now, the Celtic Shamrock's brilliant. I don't know if you've been collecting that. It comes out periodically, doesn't it? And it's a great historical look, brilliantly written, brilliantly designed. Is it even a fanzine? It's in the style of a fanzine, but it's a historical magazine. Yeah. It's brilliant, and I would implore anyone who hasn't to get them on Twitter, visit their website, and you can buy all the back issues as well. Thanks for that. Paul McQuaid, Brendan Sweeney, Glengarry story, check it out. Yeah, certainly will, Tony. Thanks for that. Another question coming in from 9th Legion. It's all about shared experiences, and being in a supporters club is a bit like being part of a club within a club. Win, lose or draw, travel together, sharing the journey. Absolutely. I mean, the only reason I stopped doing it is because it can become bad for your health. It gets to that point. So I started driving through myself, and at least then I knew I was going to get home.
The thing about the Greenock, usually when they're travelling to the games, in fact, I'll make this point because if anybody of the committee's listening, they'll have a go at me otherwise. We don't actually allow drinking on the buses, so it is more of a family atmosphere on going to the games. So I guess it's maybe the reason why there's maybe 6 or 7 other pubs that run a bus, because maybe they enjoy some of the...
They like to bend the rules, Colin.
That's the one.
Exactly. Final comment in from Kevin Graham, who remembers Colin panicking about Chalky. I told him it would be fine. And Kevin, you were right, it was fine. Chalky was absolutely brilliant. He's one of the finest comedians that I've watched on a stage. And he doesn't try to be funny.
He's definitely up there with one of the best that we've had on the stage. I'd be amiss to not tell the story of when we had, is it John Rowbottom, the ex-referee?
Oh, right.
The one that looks like Pierluigi Collina.
He does, yeah. He's made a living out of that on after dinner circuit.
We had our sportsman's dinner, our annual sportsman's dinner for charity, and he was one of the speakers. And sometimes you look at the list of people that's speaking and you go, not quite sure how good they're going to be, but he came on and did his whole Italian to Scottish translation, pretending to be Luigi Collina with the yellow cards and the red cards, and he was absolutely fantastic. I think the thing about Greenock is we appreciate a good bit of humour, and there'll be a receptive audience for a lot of things. As we said, we've put Kevin up to do poetry. Anytime you're running a night with a legend like Danny McGrain or Chris Sutton or John Hartson, you've never got to tell the audience to be quiet.
No, they're always very respectful.
They're there to listen to the player, and if anybody was to make a noise, there's usually someone in the crowd telling them to
someone else will shush them down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think every player that we've had down at the club, one, hasn't realised the size of it, and 2, has said it's a fantastic night and they couldn't wait to come back. Yeah,
it's a classic TARDIS once you get in. Tony Cassidy, thanks again. Any famous music or bands from Sonny Greenock? Now, I'm relying on you for that one, Colin, because I can't think of any. What I will say is, was there a place called Rico's in Greenock?
There was, yes.
And I know that a lot of the up-and-coming bands would play at Rico's, wouldn't they?
They did, yeah. In fact, I stayed just along the street from Rico's. I think there's been a lot of musicians that have kind of started in the Greenock area or have come down to play gigs in Greenock, certainly. Ones that have kind of made it onto the big charts, not so much, but guys that are respected within the Scottish music scene. In fact, our friend of the podcast, Kevin Miles, is actually from Port Glasgow.
Oh, is he?
And his band Yashin were founded in Greenock.
Oh, well, there you go. There's an answer to your question, Tony Cassidy. Check out Yashin. Kevin Miles obviously wrote the Celtic charity song, Celtic, My Heart, My Soul.
Yes.
Fantastic song. The other thing I was going to mention there, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, but Just a Boys Game, is that not some of the scenes filmed in Greenock?
There's been quite a few films that's been...
with the great Frankie Miller.
Yes, I think that was filmed in Greenock. We've also got Sweet 16, Martin Compston's debut film. Dear Frankie, Gerard Butler, that's been filmed in Greenock. There's been lots of different films that have certainly used the Greenock surroundings as a place to record. Scarlett Johansson's been here. There's been quite a few over the years.
What was that? Was it Under the Skin? Was that filmed some of that in Greenock with Scarlett Johansson?
That was that was the most recent one.
Yeah.
I think it was about 6-7 years ago maybe.
I was in that film.
Wait.
So you can figure out where. So
Under the skin.
Bobby De Niro and what was it? Paul Brannigan was the Scottish actor, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Celtic fan as well. Manny of the Stone Roses loves Greenock. Did you know that?
I didn't know that, no.
And I think it's because he has a link with the music booker from Rico's. So Manny still talks very fondly about Greenock.
Well, we used to have a fantastic record store called Eurythmics.
Right.
And it used to be the place that you would go and get your concert tickets.
Mm.
You would go and get your Tea in the Park tickets out of there. And it was incredible. It was in the Oak Mall in Greenock. And when that shut down, the kind of live music scene sort of did dwindle a bit.
Yeah.
But there is places that are, I mean, we've had Kyle Faulkner playing in recent years. We had Amy McDonald playing. We had Example played a gig in the town hall.
Mm-hmm.
There is a place for live music, and there's some fantastic live musicians that we used to actually have until this pandemic started. A Sunday afternoon music club where we would invite local artists to come down and play for us. So we had guys like I'm trying to think of some of the names. Mark McLean, who's a local musician. We had a fantastic vocalist by the name of Judd Harron, and we would pack the hall downstairs on a Sunday afternoon when Celtic weren't playing.
Brilliant. Just
for live music. So there's definitely a place within Greenock for live music. Guys like Mick McLennan, there's definitely a place for it.
Oh, it's great to hear. Just finally then, to wrap up, Colin, how has the pandemic and the lockdown affected the club? Have you been okay? Have you been able to operate and function?
I mean, I guess we've been really lucky. We are one of the clubs that are probably run more financially astute, and we've got to thank our committee and our treasurer for that. Mm-hmm. We were able to get support from the various networks that were put out there by the government. And we were able to support our employees during that time by completing their full wage, which I'm sure would have helped a lot of people, especially during the uncertainties. We found creative ways to raise money. We did 50-50 draws. We did 9 in a row merchandise. So although we were closed for a couple of months, the support that we've had from the members and from our visitors has really helped us through it, and we look to have come out on a good footing, and we just look forward to continuing to stay safe at the moment, and when possible look forward to getting back to running these nights like we spoke about and taking these people back to watch the Glasgow Celtic.
Well, I'm looking forward to it, Colin, and it's a great place to visit at Laird Street.
Laird Street in
Greenock. The Greenock Celtic Supporters Club. For any other supporters clubs who want to join us on this new feature on A Celtic State of Mind, get in touch on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. You can email me, get in touch, and we'll organise something for you to come through to the studio, and we can take it from there. One other thing to mention, please subscribe to us on YouTube, and you will be placed into a prize draw. The prize will be announced next week, but get subscribing on YouTube. Everything that A Celtic State of Mind does is free of charge. We produce daily content. Yesterday was a 5-month run of daily podcasts, Colin. 5 months of daily podcasts. So we are creating multi-daily content now. So get subscribing to us. Follow us on Twitter. Follow us on Facebook as well. And there's loads more to come. But all that's left for me to say is thank you all for joining us, and thank you, Colin, for joining me on A Celtic State of Mind.
Take care, guys.